Happy are those who do not follow the advice of the wicked, or take the path that sinners trod, or sit in the seat of scoffers. But their delight is in the law of God, on which they meditate daily and night. They are like trees planted by streams of water, which yield their fruit in its season, and the leaves do not wither. Thus says the Lord, cursed are those who trust in mere mortals and make mere flesh their strength, whose hearts turn away from God. They shall be like shrubs in the desert, and shall not see when relief comes. They shall live in the parched places of the wilderness, in an uninhabited salt land. Blessed are those who trust in God. They shall be like trees planted by water, sending out their roots by the stream. They shall not fear when heat comes, and the leaves shall stay green. In the year of drought, they are not anxious, and they do not cease to bear fruit. I invite the children to come up. Have a seat right down here. I'm going to show you something that I know you've seen a lot before. What is that? That's a smiley face. And what is that? That's the sad face, right? Can y'all make a smiley face? How about a sad face? Okay. Now I'm going to ask you some questions about different kinds of people. And you tell me whether they are probably going to have a smiley face or a sad face. Somebody who is hungry, they're going to have a sad face, right? How about somebody who is very poor? Are they going to have a happy face? What are they going to have? They're going to have a sad face too. Okay. What about somebody who is crying because they just lost their pet? Are they going to have a happy face or a sad face? They're going to have a sad face too. Now here's a tough one. How about you're in your class and somebody is being bullied and you speak up and say, stop doing that, and the kids start bullying you then? Are you going to have a happy face or a sad face if you're being bullied because you tried to stand up for somebody who was being hurt? What do you think? A happy face, even if you're being bullied yourself? You're ahead of the story here. You probably are going to have a sad face initially. Okay. Now, what if you're rich and can buy anything that you want? You can have a happy face or a sad face? Probably a happy face. What if you can go out to eat and you can have all the food you want, all your favorite foods, as much as you want? Are you going to be sad? You're going to be happy. You're going to be happy, okay? What if you're one of the most popular kids in your class, and whenever you say something, people kind of look up to you as if you're really one of the cool kids? Are you going to be sad or happy? Probably going to be happy because everybody's looking at me. Okay, now, Jesus got together with his disciples and he said, that's not quite right. And he talked about what we call the Beatitudes. This Sunday, we're talking about the Beatitudes. Does anybody know what Beatitudes means? It's a pretty fancy word. I like to use the word Beatitudes are happy attitudes. Okay? So Beatitudes are when you're happy, when you're blessed. And in the Bible, we use the word blessed are, but also we could use the words congratulations because of such and such. So what Jesus says is that if you are poor, you're not going to have a sad face, you're going to have a happy place because you are blessed, because you will experience the love of God. In the same way, if you're hungry, you're going to have a happy face because you will be fed by people who are concerned about other people. And what you just said earlier, if you speak out to protect somebody who's being bullied and you're bullied yourself, you are going to have a happy face. Why? Because it's something for a good reason and you feel good inside. Now, and so these people, Jesus says, these people are blessed. Okay? Then he says, but woe. What does woe mean? Woe to you. What does that mean? Do anybody know what woe means? What? Wait a second. No, that's yeah, we say woe for a horse. But woe means you better watch out, okay? You're going to be in trouble. And he says, woe to those who are rich, because unless they give to other people, they're going to be kind of lonely, and they're going to not be happy. They're going to be sad. And he says, woe to those who eat an awful lot of food. They're going to have a sad face too. Maybe because they overeat and have a stomach ache or get a little bit overweight, but also because they haven't shared. And then he says, woe to that popular kid in class who everybody likes, because they will realize eventually that what they're talking about doesn't make any sense. Now, you need to stand up now, okay? One of the things he says that if you are hungry and poor and sad and people speak out against you, that you will eventually leap for joy. He uses those words. He says, if you are part of God's kingdom, if you experience the love of God and you share that love, you're going to leap for joy. So now we've got to stand up here, okay? On the count of three, we're going to smile. Anybody wants to join us, you can. But on the count of three, we're going to smile and we're going to leap for joy, okay? 1, 2, 3, leap. Nate, you need to leap for joy. 1, 2, 3, leap. Okay. And truly, we are all blessed to be part of God's loving family and kingdom. Jesus came down with them and stood on a level place with a great crowd of disciples and a great multitude of people from Judea, Jerusalem, and the coast of Tyre and Sidon. They had come to hear him and to be healed of their diseases. And those who were troubled with unclean spirits were cured. And all in the crowd were trying to touch him, for power came out from him and healed all of them. Then he looked up to his disciples and said, "Blessed are you who are poor, for yours is the kingdom of God. Blessed are you who are hungry now, for you will be filled. Blessed are you who weep now, for you will laugh. Blessed are you when people hate you, or when they exclude you, revile you, and defame you on account of the human one. Rejoice in that day and leap for joy, for surely your reward is great in heaven. For that is what their ancestors did to the prophets. But woe to you who are rich, for you have received your consolation. Woe to you who are full now, for you will be hungry. Woe to you who are laughing now, for you will mourn and weep. Woe to you when all speak well of you, for that is what their ancestors did to the false prophets.
Well, we've heard our gospel lesson about 6 times already this morning, so we should have this very clear in our minds. Some of our hearings of this gospel have been from Luke, and some have been from Matthew. Our gospel lesson is actually from Luke, but it sounds like a version of Jesus' Sermon on the Mount from Matthew's gospel, doesn't it? The most glaring difference, of course, is that in addition to blessings, Luke includes a list of woes. This is a parallel to Jeremiah's judgmentally harsh curses that we heard before. Another difference is Luke's literal pronouncements over against Matthew's spiritualized versions of the same things. For example, Luke is blunt. Blessed are the poor, he says. Matthew's is more subtle, more nuanced, more open to interpretations. Blessed are the poor in spirit, he says. Similarly, Luke postulates, blessed are you who are hungry. Matthew, perhaps more palatably, says, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Curses, especially from the mouth of Jesus, are hard and troubling to hear. Woe to you, perhaps woe to us, those who are rich, who have enough to eat, who laugh, or when we have a good reputation. What's up with that? Especially the good reputation part. And even if we could argue with Jeremiah, at least he, in his book of prophecy, gives us something of a sensible explanation for the curses that he invokes. Cursed, he said, are those who trust in mere mortals or make mere flesh their strength, whose hearts turn from God. They shall be like shrubs in the desert and shall not see when relief comes. They shall live in the parched places in the wilderness, in an uninhabited salt land. So, at least for Jeremiah, something self-serving or God-denying leads to the curse. We might say they brought it on themselves. Well, Jesus has just come from Nazareth, where you remember he was run out of town for claiming authority and announcing a new jubilee, reminding folks of God's ways of reversing fortunes and honoring the poor. And so he leaves Nazareth and he goes to the mountain to pray. And after praying on the mountain, he goes down, Luke says, to the plain, an accessible place, a flat place where all could come. That level ground where Luke will tell us that we encounter the realm of God among those who, by chance or by choice, embody God's values. So Jesus is with the people, among the people, not above, speaking from the ivory tower. And many who are curious or hopeful about Jesus' message came. These were his budding disciples, and they included Gentiles and those on the margins because of maladies of body or spirit. This was Jesus' audience for this pronouncement of blessings and woes. And the composition of his audience is significant. Because you see, the blessings, we need to understand, were not reserved for those who were ready to follow, while the woes were on the heads of the pagans. No, these are all those who are ready to receive Jesus' message. And he says, "Blessed are you. Woe to you, you who would follow me." Where do you find yourself? At the outset, we notice that Jesus heals all of them, not just some of them. Jesus heals all of them, all those who hunger for dignity, for hope and health and forgiveness. And after this, Jesus initiates them into the way of life that brings healing and dignity by describing whose life is marked by blessing and whose by woe. As Mark so wonderfully described to the children earlier, blessed can indeed mean happy or congratulations. Most scholars think it's a term of affirmation, at least in this setting, in this context. So, you're right. You're getting it right. Bravo, yay for you. You're living in line with what is just and good. Woe, then, is a warning. Watch out. Pay attention. You're out of line and you're headed for trouble that won't serve you or anybody else. The way you're living is contrary to the love and justice of God. So this is how Jesus begins his ministry, by aligning himself with the ethics of the prophets who have gone before him, by saying that he is the new agent of this realm of God, this way of righteous living. His theology of reversal brings up what the wealthy class has managed to gloss over for generations, what they have supplanted with a system of laws to be followed to gain merits. But here Jesus comes, bringing it all up again. This reversal that is the hallmark of God's way. We heard it in Mary's song, that the mighty will be brought down and the lowly lifted up. The hungry will be filled and those who are full will taste of gnawing hunger. The same reversal is the theme of many gospel stories, particularly the story of the rich man and Lazarus and the Pharisee and the tax collector. And they echo the admonitions of the prophets. The reign of God, you see, is an era of reversal, turning things on their heads, creating a new order that is inaugurated again by Jesus' own ministry. Rich, poor, hungry, full, laughing, weeping, rejected, accepted. The tables are about to be turned in this new reality where all belong, where the hungry are fed, where the rich spread their wealth. Jesus paints an unambiguous picture of the vision that God holds for the reign of justice, and then he initiates those who would seek to follow. Preacher Fred Craddock says that Jesus isn't making suggestions about how to be happy, or, he said, giving warnings on how to keep from being miserable. Rather, he's making defining statements of the way of life that is inside and outside the reign of God. Now, we know from the work of liberation theologians, and we know from the historical context of the prophets, that God has something of a bias towards that is found among those who are poor, making it clear that this is not a differential of love, but it's because of a need and the consequential openness of spirit that often comes with the need for food and dignity and liberation. So God's perspective is compassion for those who are in need, those who are vulnerable, those without the power to improve their own situation. David Holwerda traces many Old Testament laws simply to this: to God's desire to help those who have trouble making their own way in the world. And Jesus embodies this ethic in all his ministry. His words remain countercultural today, as we are all called to equalize, to come onto the plane for the sake of love. But these blessings and woes are still difficult to hear, knowing how to appropriate them for ourselves and the world. The blessings, I find, are easier to appropriate than the woes. But it's in the woes that Jesus offers them and us the opportunity to shift our focus and recenter our actions, getting ourselves aligned with the attitudes that can give our lives meaning and purpose and give blessing to others in a way that is reciprocal and brings us all into the blessing. As I pondered this passage this week, especially through the lens of Black History Month, I've imagined what this sermon might sound like coming from the mouth of a 21st century black preacher. Say, for example, William Barber. How would he claim these blessings? And for whom? On whom and at what actions might he pronounce woes? Who are the blessed today? And who among us needs to scrutinize our own values? As I've imagined this reenactment of Luke's sermon, it becomes clear that we must hear Jesus' blessings and woes in economic context, in a world of debt and debtors. Jesus, you see, knew how oppressive economic systems worked, and how even then the 1% controlled the poor. But he claimed that God's economy offered good news for the poor and for the rich. How can we be a part of that economy today? How can we bring it to reality? This world in which no one has too much and no one is starving. Or are we simply comfortable with the inequities around us? Does our money follow our theology in enacting justice and pouring out kindness? Or do we hear the woe for ourselves? Our modern preacher's lesson might remind us of Jesus' location. The church, we, must not preach from the mountaintops. Rather, we follow Jesus to the place where all can gain access to the message and to the call, to the healing and to the good news. Where might that be for us? Where is our plane? Is it on the troubled and troubling border? Is it where the edge gathers? At drag queen story hour, perhaps? Or at Me Too gatherings? Where do we find those among us and away from us who are dislocated? And once we find them, will we actually go there and stand on the same level, eye to eye and heart to heart, for the sake of love? This, Jesus says, is the location of blessing. If our lives then are misaligned, we might have shallow pleasure, but it will lead in the end to emptiness. On the eve of his assassination, Martin Luther King Jr. checked his ultimate values. He wrote this: "Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. So I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord." Values aligned, blessing received. So if we have a choice, which of course we do, will our lives be blessed? Or will our actions bring woe on ourselves or others? Will we station ourselves alongside those who are excluded, hungry, persecuted, to get that cycle going, to observe the blessed ones, to receive the blessing, to pass the blessing on? If we'll focus our attention, align our values with the values of the realm of God, we are blessed. And we are like trees planted by the water, thriving, roots deep in the soil, offering shade, never ceasing to bear the fruit of love and justice. Amen. I invite you to be seated to receive the benediction and the blessing of the postlude. And Sue and Barbara, thank you so much for being our representatives in Cuba, and we missed you, and we welcome you back, and we look forward to hearing the gifts that you bring back with you in form of insights and things that you observed and things that you shared. This is one way, I think, of putting that reciprocity into motion, understanding that when we offer blessing, even if it means giving up all we have, we become receptors of that blessing, and we are filled again and can pass it on. This is a message for the church, and it's a message for each of us individually as well. As we ponder that, may God bless us to the place where we leap for joy. May we know indeed that we are God's beloved, that we are those who follow in the way of Jesus, and that all of it is made possible by the Holy Spirit who lives in each of us and enlivens us to be and do the work of love and justice. Amen.